Red Bull just triggered something that almost never happens in Formula One. The FIA is now taking a deeper look at their engine. And it all started with one moment. One sudden failure. One complete loss of power, right in the middle of the Chinese Grand Prix. No warning. No recovery. Just gone. And here's why this is a big problem. Verstappen wasn't fighting for the win. But he was about to secure solid points, in a race where damage limitation was everything. Then suddenly, 0. And in a season this tight, 0 points is not just a bad result. It's a potential turning point. But that's not even the real issue. Because failures like this don't just happen randomly anymore. These power units are built to survive extreme conditions. They are tested, simulated, pushed to the limit before the season even begins. So when something like this happens, the question is not what failed. The question is, why did it fail now? And that's exactly what the FIA wants to understand. Because behind the scenes, there is growing concern about how far teams are pushing these new hybrid systems. Energy deployment, electrical load, thermal limits, everything operating right on the edge. And Red Bull might be closer to that edge than anyone else. Now add this. While Red Bull was dealing with a DNF, Mercedes was dominating. Flawless execution, perfect reliability, a 1-2 finish that made them look untouchable, which creates a dangerous contrast. One team in total control, another suddenly under investigation. And this is where everything changes. Because if the FIA finds even a small irregularity, even something minor, it won't just affect one race. It could impact the entire season. Performance, development, confidence, everything. And Verstappen already hinted at it. He said these cars feel unpredictable. He said every lap feels like survival. At the time, it sounded like frustration. Now, it sounds like a warning. So the real question is not why Red Bull failed in China. The real question is, what are they doing differently that made the FIA look closer? What makes this even more serious is that China didn't feel like a one-off. It felt like something building up, slowly, before finally breaking. Because if you go back to the very start of the race, the warning signs were already there. Not obvious, not dramatic, but clear enough if you know what to look for. Verstappen didn't launch cleanly. He lost ground immediately. And that's unusual. Because one of Red Bull's biggest strengths, for years, has been race starts. Traction, power delivery, control off the line. But in China, that advantage was gone. And from that moment, the entire race changed. Instead of dictating the pace, he was reacting. Stuck behind slower cars, managing dirty air, trying to protect the tires. But more importantly, trying to understand the car. And this is where things start to get uncomfortable. Because when a driver like Verstappen is not attacking, it's not a strategy choice. It's a limitation. Something in the car is not giving him confidence, not allowing him to push. And with these new regulations, confidence comes from one thing above everything else: energy consistency. How the power comes in, how it deploys, how predictable it feels corner after corner. And in China, that consistency wasn't there. There were moments where the car looked quick, sharp on entry, strong on exit. But then suddenly, flat, like something was missing. Not grip, not downforce, power. And that kind of fluctuation doesn't come from aerodynamics. It comes from the system, from how the engine and electrical components are working together. And this is exactly where the FIA starts paying attention. Because inconsistent power delivery is one of the clearest signs that a system might be operating too aggressively, or too close to its limits. Now here's the detail most people completely missed. Despite all these issues, Verstappen was still climbing back, still finding lap time, still moving toward the top positions. Which tells you something important. The potential is there. The raw performance exists. But it's unstable, difficult to access. And that's the worst kind of performance in Formula One. Because it tricks you. It makes you believe the solution is simple. Just fix the setup. Just adjust the balance. Just optimize the strategy. But what if the issue is deeper than that? What if the problem is not how the car is set up, but how the system behaves under pressure? Because the moment the race reached its final phase, when energy demand is highest, when temperatures are critical, when everything is pushed to the limit, that's when it failed. Completely. And that timing is not random. That is exactly when weaknesses appear. Now connect that to the FIA investigation. Because they don't just look at failures. They look at when they happen. How they happen. Under what conditions. And if a system collapses under peak load, that raises a very specific question. Was it pushed beyond what it should handle? And that's where this situation becomes dangerous for Red Bull. Because even if there is no rule break, operating too close to the edge can still trigger intervention, technical adjustments, new guidelines, restrictions that force teams to pull back. And once you pull back, you lose performance. It's that simple. Now add another layer to this. Red Bull's identity. For years, they have been the team that extracts more than anyone else. More speed, more efficiency, more performance from every component. But under these new rules, that philosophy might come with a cost. Because the margin for error is smaller, the systems are more sensitive, and the penalties for pushing too far are immediate and visible, just like in China. Now here's where the tension really starts to build. Because inside the team, this creates a split. Do you keep pushing? Do you trust the concept? Or do you step back and make the car more stable, more predictable, but potentially slower? And that decision defines everything that comes next. Because if they choose stability, they risk falling behind. But if they choose aggression, they risk more failures, more scrutiny, more attention from the FIA. And this is exactly the kind of situation that can spiral very quickly. Because in Formula One, you don't get time to solve problems slowly. Every race matters. Every point matters. And right now, Red Bull is already losing ground. So the real story is not just about a failure. It's about a team standing at a crossroads, not sure which direction gives them the best chance to survive this new era. And the next move they make might decide their entire season. But just when it looks like this is only a technical problem, another layer starts to appear. And this one is far more dangerous. Because the moment the FIA steps in, even informally, the entire dynamic around a team changes. Engineers stop thinking freely. Strategies become more conservative. Decisions are no longer just about performance, they're about risk. And in Formula One, that shift is enough to slow you down, even if nothing is officially wrong. Now imagine what that feels like inside Red Bull right now. You have a car that is fast, but unpredictable. A system that delivers performance, but not consistently. A driver who can still extract speed, but is starting to question what he's driving. And on top of that, you know the FIA is watching more closely than before. That combination creates pressure. Real pressure. Because suddenly, every decision matters more. Every setting, every deployment map, every adjustment to the power unit. Everything is being evaluated, not just internally, but externally. And that changes how you operate. Now here's where things become even more complex. Because Red Bull is not just fighting technical challenges. They are fighting time. The season has already started. 2 races are gone. Points have been lost. And while they are trying to understand their own car, Mercedes is already building an advantage. Race by race, lap by lap, with a package that looks stable, predictable, repeatable. And that difference grows quickly. Because in this era, consistency beats peak performance. Every time. Now think about what that means. Red Bull might still have the potential to be the fastest car. But if they cannot access that performance reliably, it doesn't matter. Because championships are not won on potential. They are won on execution. And right now, execution is exactly what Red Bull is struggling with. But here's the twist that changes everything. Because inside situations like this, teams often make a critical mistake. They chase the problem instead of understanding it. They react. They adjust. They tweak. But they never stop to question the core concept. And if the core concept is wrong, no amount of small fixes will solve it. It will only hide it, delay it, until it appears again. Usually at the worst possible moment. Just like in China. Now bring Verstappen back into the equation. Because this is where the pressure becomes impossible to ignore. He is not just dealing with a difficult car. He is dealing with uncertainty. And elite drivers do not tolerate uncertainty for long. They need clarity. They need trust. They need to know that when they push, the car will respond. Not surprise them. Not betray them. Respond. And right now, that trust is being tested. You can hear it in the way he talks. In the way he describes the car. In the way he chooses his words carefully, but still sends a clear message. Something is not right. And when a driver like Verstappen reaches that point, teams have to react. Not slowly. Not cautiously. Immediately. But reacting under pressure is when mistakes happen. Big ones. Strategic ones. The kind that shape entire seasons. Now add one final piece to this puzzle. Reputation. Because Red Bull is not just any team. They are the team that defined the previous era. The benchmark. The reference. The standard everyone chased. And now, for the first time in a long time, They are the ones being questioned. Not just by fans. Not just by media. But by the sport itself. Through the FIA. Through scrutiny. Through attention. And once that spotlight is on you, it doesn't go away easily. Every race becomes a test. Every performance becomes a statement. Every issue becomes a headline. So now everything leads to one unavoidable reality. This is no longer about one DNF. It is no longer about one investigation. It is about whether Red Bull can adapt before the season moves too far ahead of them. Because if they can solve it quickly, this becomes a temporary setback, a moment of weakness. But if they can't, then what happened in China was not the problem. It was the beginning of something much bigger. A shift, a loss of control, a moment where dominance turns into doubt. And in Formula One, that transition can happen faster than anyone expects. So the next race is not just another race. It is a response, a signal, a moment where Red Bull either shows they are still in control, or confirms that the balance of power has already changed. And still, even after all of this, there is one final layer that could decide everything. Because what's happening at Red Bull right now is not just technical, and it's not just psychological. It's political. And this is where the FIA investigation becomes even more important than it looks. Because in Formula One, rules are not just written. They are interpreted. And sometimes, reinterpreted. Especially when one team starts to operate in a way that others cannot match. Now think about this carefully. If Red Bull has found a way to extract more performance from the power unit, even if it's technically legal, it forces the FIA to ask a very uncomfortable question. Is this within the spirit of the regulations? And when that question appears, changes usually follow. Not penalties. Not immediately. But clarifications. Technical directives. Small adjustments that close the gap. And history has shown this many times. A team finds an advantage. The FIA studies it. And suddenly, that advantage disappears. Quietly. Almost invisibly. But effectively. Now imagine that happening right now. At the start of a new era. When every team is still defining its concept. If Red Bull loses even a fraction of their edge, it doesn't just affect them. It reshapes the entire grid. Because the margins are smaller than ever. And the teams behind are not far away. Now connect this to what we saw in China. Mercedes didn't just win. They controlled everything. Race pace. Energy deployment. Tire management. No instability. No surprises. Just clean, repeatable performance. And that's the key word. Repeatable. Because that is exactly what Red Bull does not have right now. They have speed. They have potential. But they don't have consistency. And consistency wins championships. Now here's the most important part of this entire story. Because everything leads to this. If the FIA forces even small changes, and Red Bull is already struggling with stability, those changes hit twice as hard. They don't just lose performance. They lose the ability to recover it. And that is when a dominant team becomes vulnerable. Not because they forgot how to win, but because the environment changed faster than they could adapt. Now think about Verstappen one last time. Because in the end, everything revolves around him. His confidence. His feedback. His belief in the project.